Hey everybody, I'm Chris. Welcome to Board on the Floor. We are still in the month of October, so we are focusing on horror-themed board games. I did my top 10 list last week, and today I want to talk about Arkham Horror the card game and the new revised edition that was just released by Fantasy Flight Games. It came out last week, so I'm sure you could find it at any of your local gaming shops. And if you're in Canada and want to shop online, be sure to check out boardgamesandmore.com. They were nice enough to provide me with a copy so I could open it up and take a look and see the differences between the new revised edition and the original version. Arkham Horror the card game has been around since 2016, designed by Nate French and MJ Newman. It's what's known as a living card game, and it's different than a lot of card games that are out there that are known as collectible card games, CCGs. And the main difference is with a collectible card game, you got to buy packs, and it's really random the type of cards you're going to get. So if you are looking for specific cards and you go out, let's say for Pokemon or Yu-Gi-Oh or one of those types of collectible card games, you never know what's going to be in that pack. Whereas with something like Arkham Horror, every box has the same cards in it. So there's Arkham Horror, there's Marvel Champions, there's Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones. There's a lot of different living card games out there. And anytime you buy the core box or one of the expansions, you're going to get the same cards as everybody else. So that's the difference between a living card game and a collectible card game. I also think as a living card game, it's constantly expanding and growing, but that's not true because even those collectible card games, they're still out there and they're putting out new stuff all the time. Today, I wanted to talk about the differences between these two boxes. Sadly, I only got into this game in March, April. And I only found out a few months later that this revised edition was going to be coming out. But I did manage to get my hands on an old copy of this from one of the used boards. It didn't cost me that much money and it was in great shape. But the few differences now that I've opened the revised edition, the few things that are updated in this makes me wish that I had waited. Though maybe I might just trade it out, try and sell this one off and pick this one up for myself. And so let's get into it. Obviously, right off the bat, you can see very different sizes in regards to the boxes. The original box wasn't really designed for holding the cards or possibly even holding any of the expansions. This new box has obviously been rethought and redesigned, and now inside of here, you actually have an insert that would allow you to store tons of cards. So if you have Marvel Champions, it's a very similar box. The box is actually the exact same size as that one, and so the insert is also very similar to that. Now, thankfully, Arkham Horror doesn't have as many components as Marvel Champions, so you have more space to store cards. So let's take a look inside. Put this over here. Let's take a look at some of the main differences between the two boxes. And the first thing, of course, you'll notice, because the box is bigger, they've actually now made the rule book a lot bigger. It contains the exact same information, though it has now new artwork and is a bit larger. So we have the Learn to Play guides, the original 16 pages, the revised one. Actually, the pages feel a bit thicker, so it might be on thicker stock. And it's a lot longer, 24 pages. So obviously doesn't have the same information. Rules reference. Originally 31 pages, 32 pages at the back. The new one. Also 32 pages. So the Learn to Play guide is different. The campaign guide, here's the original for Night of the Zealot. 8 pages. And the new one, 8 pages as well. Let's see if the back page has the exact same information. Yeah, just more space. Here's an ad for Unfathomable. This also came out this month from Fantasy Flight Games. Oh, and some of the novels in the Arkham Horror series. I think the tokens are pretty much the same. Let me get the original tokens out. Here I have my version of the Chaos bag. I think it was a lens bag. So let's Let's get some of the original tokens and see what they look like compared to the new ones. So all of the larger tokens here, those are the Chaos tokens that are inside of here. Yeah, and they look about the same size. Same size, same artwork. Now the resource tokens, there are now some larger ones for 3 and 5, which is cool. Doom tokens look the same. There seems to be a player token here, a larger token right here, which may be for the first player. So, more tokens. When they first advertised the revised edition, they said there was going to be a lot of quality of life improvements in regards to the game. So I guess some new tokens for higher counts of resources or damage. And of course, the insert. As you can see now that the 2 boxes are open, the insert for the new revised edition is so much better than the original. All of these original living card game boxes from Fantasy Flight Games, they're all the same size, they all have the same insert, and they're not the greatest storage solution for this game, especially if you start to get some of the expansions. In the original box, I have only one expansion, but it's one of the mini expansions called Murder at the Excelsior Hotel. I just have it stored underneath here, like in a Ziploc bag. And I've separated some of the deck elements into... God, every time I open this, I think I'm going to damage these cards. Not a great solution if every time you open it, you think you're going to damage the cards. But now, look how much space we have here. Oh, I guess one of the other things that's pretty awesome is it comes with a Chaos bag. In the original release, you do not get a token bag, so you had to provide one yourself or order one from Fantasy Flight or any other company that makes a lot of these token bags. You can actually find quite a few of them online. In Canada, they're not as easy to get on Amazon, but in the States on Amazon, there's tons available. And so now I want to get into the nitty-gritty of the actual cards themselves. Now, there are no new cards in the revised edition in the sense that there are new cards in the core box, but they're not new cards to the game itself. So these are cards that were available in other expansions. But now that they've included them in the core box, what that means is we could actually create enough decks for 4 players. So when they released the original set, it was seen as a 1 to 2 player game, but if you bought 2 boxes, you would have enough cards to create all of the decks for the investigators that come in the core box. But if you just bought 1 box, you would actually have to share some of the cards. And for people who are more interested in actually building custom decks, the cards that came in the original set were not the best to start building your own deck and customizing it in a way that would really create improved investigator decks. So you could, of course, create the default decks that they suggest, but if you wanted some of those better cards, you had to get some of the expansions. But in the revised edition, those better cards are included in the set. Now, I'm trying to find an actual breakdown of all of the cards in here, and I haven't been able to do it yet, but I'm still gonna look, and hopefully by the time I finish editing this video, I'll be able to have a list that I could link to in the description so you can see all of the cards that are available in this new revised edition. Right off the top, you see we have the investigator cards. So I wanna do some comparisons because I know the artwork is different. So those are the new cards. Let's see if I could quickly find one of the old ones. There's Wendy Adams. So there's new artwork for the investigators. Makes her look a lot younger in the new one. The greatest thing is that all of the decks come pre-assembled. So if we take a look here, we have Roland Banks, Daisy Walker, Skids O'Toole, Agnes Baker, and Wendy Adams. So the 5 investigators that come in the new revised edition, well, the 5 investigators also come in the original set, but you weren't able to make all of their decks just with the cards that came here at the same time. Now you have enough cards that you could actually make all 5 of the decks. What that means is you have options with the core box to actually play up to 4 players, and also easily play any of the investigators you want. On top of having all the investigator decks pre-built, you also have each chapter from Night of the Zealot. So there's the Devourer below, Midnight Masks, and the Gathering. These are the 3 chapters from the core campaign, which is called Night of the Zealot. All of the cards you need for each chapter are now separated into their own decks. And last, we have all of the cards that are left over. So these are all of your extra cards that come in the core box. These are also going to be like your leveling up cards. So these are more powerful cards. So as you play through the campaign and you collect experience points, you're able to buy cards with that. And as you go further along, strengthen your character, strengthen your deck. There's also some rules in this game where you can rebuild all of the investigator decks according to the way you like to play, though of course you can't just max out all your cards and have this super strong deck. So one thing I wanted to do is I wanted to actually take a look at one specific deck, whether it's Wendy Adams or Roland Banks, because those are the 2 I already have pre-made in my set. And I want to take a look at the cards themselves to see how they compare, because I think the only real change is in the artwork. I don't think any of the text has been changed, and obviously any of the actual rules for the cards hasn't changed. Let's just take a quick look. All right, we'll do Roland Banks. One thing I already noticed with Roland Banks is the main card has been cut incorrectly. So the top of the card has actually been chopped off, and it's like, it just looks like the card print has been kind of shifted up a bit. So it's kind of a bummer. I wouldn't call it a misprint, it's just a miscut. The way I'll know the difference between the new cards and the old cards is the new cards aren't sleeved. There's a new expansion that's also coming out called To the Edge of the Earth. And just from the pictures, it looks like it's going to be about the same size box. So I'm curious as to how many cards are going to come in that box, and then of course how much empty space there's going to be. Because it seems like all of this space and the cards themselves just fit here. So even though if they'd be put here, they wouldn't take up so much space. But I guess if you got some of the mini expansions, hopefully they will fit in here, and they will totally fit sleeved as well. There's enough space in each of these trays to fit sleeved cards, which is great if you sleeve your cards. Let's take a look at Roland Banks and compare some of these cards. It's funny, so far it seems like a lot of the characters look younger in the new artwork. But this one I find like the original has a bit more kind of like atmosphere to it. Seems a bit darker and edgier. Hopefully there won't be a big reflection because of the sleeves, but there's the character card. Information's all the same. Another card with different artwork now, First Aid. Original artwork was a bit gorier. New one is just looks like a first aid kit. Guard dog's a bit different. Similar idea. Different execution. Not too sure why they decided to change some of the artwork. I can understand like the first aid one seemed to be a bit gory. Maybe they found it a little too offensive and they wanted to kind of update that. I don't know. But the majority of these cards are exactly the same, and there's absolutely no change in regards to how they're going to work in the game itself. If you much prefer the older artwork, tracking down one of the original core boxes is going to be pretty easy now, because a lot of people are going to be selling it off so that they can upgrade. But the majority of the art is identical. Also, each deck comes with a player aid, which is nice. And so for Roland Banks, there's only about 5 or 6 cards that have updated artwork on them. So when you look at the price, the original box is still going for about $45. The new one is about $60-65. So for the extra money, the amount of cards you get, the storage solution, the chaos bag, most of those chaos bags sell for about $5 or $10 if you could find a cheap one. But if you bought them from Fantasy Flight themselves, I think they're about $20. So the chaos bag alone makes up for the difference in cost, plus you get so many more cards. So the revised edition, even though it's not that much more expensive, is quite worth it for what you get and the package it comes in. Having every deck pre-made is a great advantage to actually having to go through the cards and organize it yourself, not just for the investigators, but for the actual campaign itself, which is great. So I really think it's a worthwhile upgrade. Artwork wise, it's arbitrary. Changing up the artwork doesn't seem to be such a big deal, but the biggest thing is just how they've improved everything about the package it comes in, the organization of it, the extra elements you get in the box, and that's why I think it really is worthwhile. Like, I think this revised edition is kind of like a nice little bonus, but what people who are really into this game are looking forward to is an expansion that is going to be treated like this, where everything could be contained in one box. So originally the expansions came out with 2 chapters in one of the boxes, and then these Mythos packs, each was a chapter in that campaign. So you had to get the 6 Mythos packs and the 1 big box expansion to have all 8 chapters of any campaign. Moving forward, every expansion is going to be contained in 2 boxes. One will be the investigator decks, and one will be the campaign. I think that is what most people are looking forward to, and this was just kind of like an added bonus. And so the greatest thing about this revised edition, I think it's to have enough cards to build all 5 of the investigator decks. I think that's really beneficial for anyone who's into this game or wants to get into this game, because if you play it solo, you could easily swap out any of the investigators anytime you want to play a campaign. And if you're playing with up to 4 players, you already have the cards you need. In the original box, you couldn't do that. That was a comparison between the original and the revised edition for Arkham Horror the card game. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you next time. Take it easy.